When you think of Sweden, you're probably thinking of meatballs, IKEA, and pop music. But while those are marvels of Swedish ingenuity, Sweden also produces some of the world's most battle-proven military platforms. Few truly believed in the kick-ass nature of this technology until Sweden and its allies started sending it en masse to Ukraine. Now even Russia, trying desperately to destroy Swedish gear and posting highlight reels from every angle, has realized this. Few countries match Swedish battlefield technology. I'm Tuomas, a former officer in the Finnish Defense Forces, and in this episode we'll break down how Swedish equipment has helped Ukraine hold off what many used to call the second army in the world, grounded their offensive air power, and pushed tactical innovation to new heights throughout the war in Ukraine. Since 2022, Sweden has undergone what can only be described as a revolution in its defense mindset. Once a nation that spent among the lowest share of GDP on defense in the Western world, Sweden has surged forward, now racing toward the top tier of NATO contributors. The shift wasn't just about budgets, it was about action. Even before formally joining NATO, Sweden broke with decades of neutrality and became one of the first countries, alongside the UK and Poland, to provide hard military support to Ukraine. In its support to Ukraine, Sweden didn't just send tanks, armored platforms, artillery, and anti-tank weapons. It also delivered critical assets for Ukraine's defense posture. The standout is the Saab 340 AWACS aircraft, known in Sweden as Argus. Delivered in late 2024, it began active operations in the spring of 2025. Multiple sources within the Ukrainian Air Force and Western intelligence confirm a historic success. One Argus plane provided real-time targeting data that led to the first-ever Ukrainian F-16 air-to-air kill of a Russian Su-35 valued at upwards of 80 million euros. The missile strike occurred well beyond either aircraft's own radar range. According to reporting from Newsweek and Defense Industry Daily, the Saab aircraft detected the Su-35 from some 200 to 300 kilometers away and relayed targeting information that allowed the F-16 to make the kill using AIM-120 missiles. This wasn't just another airstrike, it was history in the making. For the first time, a Ukrainian F-16, guided by a Swedish Saab Argus radar aircraft, shot down a Russian Su-35 deep inside Russian airspace. It was exactly the kind of mission the Argus was built for during the Cold War, spotting enemy aircraft first and turning that data into a lethal ambush. Now, even though Russia still outnumbers Ukraine in the skies, its pilots hesitate to enter Ukrainian airspace. The Argus, combined with F-16s and French Mirages, has extended Ukraine's reach far beyond the radar range of Russian jets, forcing Moscow to keep its air force at arm's length. Perhaps the second most successful Swedish weapon in Ukraine is a personal favorite of mine, the CV-90 infantry fighting vehicle. These Swedish-made beasts are deployed with some of Ukraine's most heavily engaged brigades around Chasiv Yar, Pokrovsk, and Vovchansk. Ukrainian crews nicknamed them chainsaw guns on tracks for their 40mm autocannon and rapid-fire support. As of this episode, only 11 out of 50 CV-90s have been visually confirmed destroyed by Oryx, an impressive survival rate given how long they've been in frontline combat, outperforming similar vehicles like the Bradley or Marder. More importantly, no Ukrainian crew fatalities have been publicly reported from their losses, meaning that even when a CV-90 is knocked out, its crew can quickly transfer to another vehicle and stay in the fight. Now, you'll probably find people arguing that all CV-90s have been destroyed in the comments, but you have to remember that the Ukrainian battlefield is the most filmed place on the planet, with over 10,000 surveillance drones in the air at any given time. Russia would post the destruction of these vehicles the very instant they had any footage, which is why I'm so certain of these figures. On a very fast-moving battlefield, wheeled, lightweight, self-propelled guns have become the new kings in the artillery bracket, and Sweden's Archer has emerged as one of Ukraine's most lethal assets. In counter-battery duels, its performance is almost cinematic. The crew can fire 8 rounds and vacate the position in under a minute, leaving Russian return fire hitting empty ground. Sweden has only donated 8 of these systems so far, and remarkably, only one has been confirmed damaged by Russian strikes. A closer look at Sweden's most recent aid packages reveals the delivery of 10 new Archer gun barrels, a strong signal that the systems are still in heavy use and have likely fired well past their 5,000-round barrel life. Together with Poland's Crab and France's Caesar, the Archer was one of the first artillery platforms to truly shift the battlefield in Ukraine's favor. And this is just the beginning. 18 brand new Archers are currently being built for Ukraine, with deliveries expected to start later this year and continue into 2026. Once they arrive, Ukraine's already feared counter-battery capability, renowned for its speed and precision, will become even deadlier. When most people think of Sweden's support for Ukraine, they imagine tanks, artillery, or high-tech anti-air systems. But Sweden has also quietly reshaped Ukraine's naval operations with the donation of its CB-90 fast assault boats, known locally as Stridsbåt 90. These high-speed, shallow-draft vessels were originally designed for Sweden's own archipelago warfare, where maneuvering through narrow inlets and rivers at extreme speed is the norm. In Ukraine, they have found a new purpose along the Dnipro River and in Black Sea operations, where they give Ukraine the ability to strike and move in ways that were almost impossible before. Ukraine first received 10 CB-90s in early 2024, followed by another 16 in January 2025, bringing the total fleet to 26 boats. According to both Ukraine's military intelligence's statements and Western reporting, the boats are used for special operations missions, riverine patrols, and surprise amphibious insertions, including raids near Snake Island, raids into the various narrow spits, and have been used in several of the most successful raids into Crimea so far. A Ukrainian Special Forces officer, speaking to Swedish media under the call sign Swede, put it bluntly: "They allow us to perform missions that we could not perform before." In the bigger picture, the CB-90 has given Ukraine a flexible maritime strike and mobility platform. It allows rapid troop movements along contested rivers and islands, stealthy logistics runs, and amphibious raids that keep Russian forces guessing in Crimea. Just as the Archer artillery piece transformed counter-battery fire on land, the CB-90 has opened an entirely new dimension at sea and along Ukraine's riverways, a classic Swedish solution: fast, precise, and brutally effective. The Carl Gustaf recoilless rifle has proven its worth again and again on the Ukrainian front lines. Though originally designed decades ago, it's anything but outdated. Ukrainian forces have used it to deadly effect across urban battlefields and trench zones, where its mix of anti-armor, high-explosive, and bunker-busting rounds makes it a go-to tool for infantry firepower. In one standout case early in the war, a Ukrainian unit reportedly used the Carl Gustaf to destroy a Russian T-90M, one of Russia's most modern tanks, and the first of its kind to be taken out in this way. Then there's the NLAW, co-developed by Sweden and the UK, and practically made for the kind of close-range, fast-paced combat Ukraine has had to master. Thousands were delivered before and during the early stages of the full-scale invasion, and Ukrainian troops quickly made it one of the most iconic weapons of the war. Whether in forests, towns, or ambush sites along muddy roads, NLAW has allowed soldiers to knock out Russian tanks with a single top-attack shot, fire and forget, then disappear. Saab is now ramping up to produce up to 400,000 units per year, just to keep up with global demand, fueled largely by Ukraine's success. And rounding off Sweden's immense shoulder-launched Ukraine arsenal, there's the AT-4, a lightweight, single-use launcher that Ukrainian troops have used to clear bunkers, breach trenches, and smash light vehicles, and it is likely the favorite of Ukraine's special forces. It doesn't have the tech of the NLAW or the versatility of the Carl Gustaf, but it's simple, rugged, easy to carry, and effective in the brutal close-quarters environments where this war is often fought. Ukraine has received hundreds of thousands, and they've become a key part of the infantry's toolkit in cities like Pokrovsk, Chasiv Yar, and beyond. Together, these 3 shoulder-fired Swedish weapons have turned Ukrainian infantry into fast-moving tank killers. In a war defined by armored assaults and fortified lines, they've ensured that even small, well-trained teams can stop an entire column in its tracks. Without them, Russia might have steamrolled far more of Ukraine's early defenses than it did. Recently, Ukraine has faced growing pressure from relentless Russian drone swarms and missile strikes, a situation made worse by Donald Trump limiting the number of Patriot interceptors the US is sending and selling to Ukraine. Civilian areas and critical infrastructure have been especially hard hit. In many regions, air defense is now the most vital element of survival, not just for soldiers, but for cities, logistics routes, and power grids. And once again, Sweden has stepped in, delivering systems that have made a serious impact. Sweden first delivered the RBS-70 man-portable air defense system back in 2023, and in early 2025, it followed up with a major aid package that added a powerful new layer, the Tridon Mark II, a truck-mounted 40mm autocannon system built specifically to take down drones and low-flying threats. Together, they form a deadly mix of mobility, precision, and short-range stopping power, just what Ukraine needs to defend against Russia's evolving Shahed drone threat. The RBS-70 is already a familiar system in Ukraine, deployed since early in the war. What makes it different is that it's laser-guided, not heat-seeking. That means it can't be spoofed by flares, and it's terrifyingly accurate. Ukrainian forces have used it to shoot down Orlan drones, cruise missiles, and even helicopters in high-threat zones where more expensive systems are overstretched, as seen here by Ukrainians taking down a Kamov 52 combat helicopter using a Swedish RBS-70. But the real game-changer is the Swedish and British-made Tridon. This is a fully mobile, radar-directed 40mm air defense cannon that can be mounted on trucks or tracked vehicles like the BVS-10. It fires 300 rounds per minute at targets up to 12 kilometers away and can switch between different ammunition types mid-burst, making it ideal for shredding drone waves, especially Shaheds and Lancets. Now, let's look at some of the systems delivered by Sweden that, in my view, haven't quite lived up to expectations. Not because they were bad platforms, but because the war in Ukraine has proven brutally effective at exposing the limits of older or under-supported systems. Take the Stridsvagn 122, Sweden's heavily modified Leopard 2A5. On paper, it's one of the best protected Western tanks ever built, with reinforced composite armor, thermal camouflage, and upgraded optics. But Ukraine received just 10 of them. And in a war where drones, artillery, and top attack munitions saturate the battlefield, small tank numbers don't last long. According to Oryx and other open-source trackers, 9 of the 10 have been destroyed, damaged, or abandoned. It's a stark reminder that even highly capable tanks can't survive without numbers, layered air defense, and drone cover. And in Ukraine, tanks have become some of the most vulnerable assets on the field. The PBV-302 is another case where it could be either or for me. Sweden delivered around 200 of these older tracked armored vehicles, reliable in mud, swamps, and rough terrain, but they were never designed to survive modern drone warfare. With thin armor and no active protection, PBVs have proven extremely vulnerable to cheap Russian FPV drones. Footage has emerged of many Ukrainian PBVs being targeted and destroyed by drones, but on the other hand, they probably weren't meant to be anywhere near the front line. The platform's age and lack of protection means that survivability just can't keep up with battlefield threats. That's not to say that they didn't offer some positive sides behind the front lines, but all in all, like many of the older Western armored variants delivered, they've probably not had a big frontline impact. When we take a step back, it's clear that Swedish-made systems have shaped this war in ways few expected. From the CB-90 fast boats, enabling daring raids in contested waters, to the CV-90 infantry fighting vehicles, cutting through front lines with speed and firepower, Swedish platforms have delivered where it matters. The Saab 340 Argus has revolutionized air operations, feeding real-time targeting data to Ukraine's F-16s. The Archer artillery system, with its unmatched precision and mobility, has become a backbone of Ukraine's counter-battery fire. And on the ground, shoulder-fired weapons like the NLAW, AT4, and Carl Gustaf have empowered small Ukrainian teams to destroy Russian armor with surgical strikes. All of this is backed by real commitment. Since 2022, Sweden has delivered more than 83 billion Swedish kronor in military aid, more than 7 billion euros, making it one of the top contributors per capita anywhere in the world. That includes not just weapons, but also radars, drones, training, spare parts, logistics, and industrial support. In many ways, Sweden has quietly become one of Ukraine's most important allies, not through sheer volume, but by delivering exactly the kinds of systems that are needed, and doing so fast. Seeing that Sweden has already quietly started delivering parts for its famous Gripen fighter jet to Ukraine, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the next step in Sweden's long-standing plan, but it likely depends on an okay from you-know-who in the White House, which is probably unlikely to come. As always, I hope you have a great weekend. And to my Swedish neighbors, thank you for standing up for what's right. The range of homegrown equipment you've sent to Ukraine sets an example that few others have matched. Gustaf Adolphus would be proud of how you're holding Russia to task.